So my name is Kailey Frazier, and I'm 33. And growing up, I knew a little bit about God. We would attend church occasionally, part of a non-denominational Christian church. And as I got older, mostly in high school, we, as a family, kind of stopped going. It was little by little, and then it kind of faded away. So in high school, I pretty much didn't have a relationship with the Lord at all. I'd still pray occasionally, but it became something I didn't know at all. It was something that I remembered going to as a kid, going to the children's ministry and watching, what's that show? Bob the Tomato. And so I kind of understood, the Noah's Ark was painted on the wall, but it was very, to me, there was no relationship. It just felt like, well, we just go to church because that helps us be nice. At home, it wasn't really fostered and there was no praying or anything like that as a family. So as I got older, I just thought, well, why am I spending this 1 hour at church? And, there's no evidence of it. Not really. I mean, I grew up in a great family, but not so much when it came to fighting and solutions. So it was kind of like, be tougher, just be tougher. Me on my own, I had to find God and kind of recalibrate. And I started thinking about it. Honestly, the Lord came to my mind when I deployed. I was on a small FOB in Afghanistan, and as a medic, they're not on the job, but in your little bee hut behind closed doors, sometimes you mourn the patients, the heroes that you lose. And I remember there was one that I just could not get over for a while. And so I needed something bigger than me. And because we couldn't save all of them, or they would come, DOA. And so I remember thinking, this is so horrible. This is so horrible, like war. And so I remember thinking, there's got to be a bigger reason. Why is this being, allowed? And so I started seeking the Lord again in the military, but I was on my way out and I didn't have any other Christian friends. I didn't have any other believing friends, I should say. And so it wasn't until I was actually married and was expecting my son Bradley that, reflecting back on my life, I'm like, even though on the outside it appeared like things were going great and I was successful in the military and, was now married, and it was not going great. I was married to an abusive man, and for me, it was like trauma kind of turned me to God and to God, and those kinds of experiences. When things are going great, always thinking, well, I need something. Sometimes it's when you get a flat tire. Okay, you put the spare on, So for me, when things get bad, unfortunately, that's what it took to turn me back to God. But I was grateful for those experiences, because otherwise it's like, if you live in the first world, you have first world problems, you don't have that much discomfort. You don't go deeper on so many levels other than faith, You're just kind of going through day-to-day life. And so it wasn't until I was living in Georgia in that relationship I'm not in anymore, it was previous marriage, that I went back to church and I started seeking the Lord more. But my story is one of kind of backsliding Christian where, I'd go to church, I'd feel it, I'd get involved with a prayer group, but it still wasn't like a one-on-one with God, with Jesus, with the Trinity, God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit. I still was like, he's some far off God, but he's looking down on us. I kind of had that in my head for a long time. And so I would say that I started going the deepest and praying with expectation. That started happening in 2020. So it was after I had my second son with my now husband, who is amazing and takes such good care of us, that I, am in a better situation than I probably have ever been. and I want to go deeper. So it was in 2020 when everything was hitting the fan all across the world that I was like, okay, Lord, I know your word is true. And frankly, I don't want to get left behind and this world is falling apart. So again, it was still kind of was that not fight or flight, but that it's a fear, and it's a healthy fear. You love the Lord so much, you want to be with him. So my direction and my attention was caught back to him truly, and it hasn't wavered now since 2020. So I am pro-life. However, I used to not be pro-life. I was proud to say that I was pro-choice. And that was up until I actually had my second child, Bradley. I thought that I was all loving, all encompassing, what you should be for your friend or yourself, right? And I was pro-choice. I remember in high school, I grew up in a family that did not talk about sex or what you should or shouldn't do. So all of it was left up to the public schools. And I was raised in Southern California. So I remember, I believe it was Planned Parenthood that came to our school, and there was an assembly, and they talked to us, and it was so positive. And if you need help, reach out to us. And I think even the name is kind of ironic, Planned Parenthood. But in my experience, it has nothing to do with planning or being a parent. So I used to be pro-choice. That is also just a complete flip on the true meaning of those words all being put together. So after I actually held my son, the moment I held him, and I had Bradley in 2012, all of those emotions of what I had done in 2008 hit me, because it was then that when I was holding Bradley in my arms, I was like, this is my second child. I've only told that to a few people. I've lived the experience of being told it's a clump of cells. Oh, okay. Well, why would you lie to me? And so I'm in high school, just bought it, didn't have any reason to doubt that. There wasn't as much fake news back then, but there was. It wasn't spoken. It wasn't talked about. So I remember when I became pregnant, and I was actually in the depths of the late entry program to join the Air Force. And I wanted nothing more than to get out of the house I was living in and the town I'm from, which is a quaint, cute little town in Southern California. But I wanted something bigger and to leave. And I remember not having that conscience to be like, oh, I'm going to go abort a baby. I thought truly in my head, this is a clump of cells. It's fine. It's not going to hurt it. It's not going to do anything to it. Okay. I think one of the, most grittiest and best things you can say is if you can relate to somebody and say, well, you don't know because you haven't experienced that. Like, well, you're not a doctor. Well, you haven't been a drug addict. So how can you speak to me in my situation? So I can say I have had an abortion, and then I've had my baby, and there is no stage where they're just a clump of cells. The moment of conception, the egg and the sperm, when they come together, that's life. And so you have a full set of DNA with that baby, and that's the moment they become a human, is when those two, when you and that person combine, and that is a brand new life. You will never have that baby again. And this was the other part that kind of slapped me in the face, was immediately after I chose to do that, right out of high school, I had joined the Air Force, and I became a surge tech. So I learned about anatomy. You can't become a doctor. You can't pass med school. You can't pass these things unless you acknowledge the facts. And so if you say that's not a baby, you're going to fail. If you get pregnant, you're not going to have a zebra. When you get pregnant, you're not going to have a clump of cells. You are going to have your baby. And I'm just going to say it. It doesn't matter who the father is. That is yours. And so part of my fear, back then was, well, my parents are going to be furious at me. I'm not going to have any support. I'm going to get kicked out. And I don't even know if the dad wants to be a dad. I don't even know if he wants to be with me. So these were all thoughts that were swirling in my head. And then the biggest drawback for me was, oh no, I'm going to be stuck here in this town, poor, supporting a baby. And I think that's where a lot of women get stuck in that thought, because that's all it is. It's only a thought. That's not the truth. And there are so many. And I wish I had even just typed it in, because you don't know until you know. You can type in women's resources, even Speak Life, this ministry. They can get you in touch with somebody. If you get kicked out the day if you're in high school, you get kicked out the day you tell your mom or dad that you're pregnant, they can help you find housing. They can help you. And that is a better choice than abortion. So I used to be pro-choice. I'm just going to say it's pro-murder. It's not. Your life shouldn't have been a choice to your parents, and you get to sit here and watch this and learn this. And so I say that with love. You want that baby, whether you realize it or not, because when you hold them, that's when it all comes together and you're like, oh yeah, this is real. I can't believe. And you'll get to watch their personality develop, and it all becomes real right when you hold them. So when I held Bradley, my firstborn, but second child, I mean, I was crying in that room and nobody knew what I was crying about. I was crying for my unborn. And I knew just the gravity of what I had done when I held Bradley. So I used to be pro-choice, which is the wrong way to say that anyways. You know, we don't call bullets rubber balls, because they're not. So I just, from the beginning, let's get to the root. It's not a clump of cells. It's your baby. You have no idea what God can do with that little life and you together. And so I'm still missing my first son, who is now in heaven. But I'm now so proud and glad, and just hope this helps so many people, because I'm pro-life, because I want everybody to be born and even get that opportunity to live their life. So I am 100% pro-life. So when I went to go have this done, I went to a family member and they set up the appointment for me, and I was dropped off. This was, this was in 2008. And so, in Southern California, and I believe it was a Planned Parenthood clinic facility. And I went in, something that I look back on that I'm like, none of them ever referred to it as a baby. It was very short conversation. And when I went into a waiting room, and I remember, because my personality tendency and in the lie in my head was, okay, I'm just gonna do this procedure. I'm good to go. You know, this was like another day for me. No big deal. Okay. I was sitting in the room, and I remember there were 3 other girls in the room with me. So it was me, another girl, and 2 other girls, and all different backgrounds. We all looked different. And I remember sitting there trying to talk to them, because I'm bubbly, and I'm like, what's your name? And like, all of them were solemn. And I was like, not happy. I was like the most talkative person in the room. And I remember one girl literally was crying and just kind of rocking and crying. And so I didn't say anything to her, but I was trying to talk to them, and they were not happy to be there. And I didn't understand, because I'm like, well, what's the big deal? It's okay. You're okay, you know? And I remember we all got called back one at a time. What was horrifying to me, I didn't know how bad it was until then I went into the Air Force and was trained up in scrubbing, and I was surge tech. And so now looking back, I'm like, I'm sure there were OSHA violations that, this was back then, but we were literally, it was very fast. They brought you back, and I believe it was a DNC, which I've helped assisted in those, dilation and like scraping. And so, all of us were on beds. There were just curtains around us. Not even a real OR. This is like something you would see when you deploy, the setting of this. Just curtains in between us. And I remember, boom, I'm out. And I mean, I woke up and it was just like they give you like a pad. And I was probably in and out within maybe 2 hours. And looking back on that, so there's no aftercare, there's no post-abortion counseling. And so I just look back and I think like, okay, after the training I received, I don't feel like that is even, it's hard to even say that was like America. You know, when I look back at the clinic and how fast they process you through, it's like cattle, like you're pushed through. And there's a reason why there's not a lot of conversation between you and the staff. There's a reason why things are kept short and sweet. And as a previous medic now, I'm like, that's the opposite of what we were trained. You know, you talk to the patient, you relax them, you're there to care for them, to take care of them. That was my experience. It was a DNC. It was over and I was out in 2 hours. I have no idea where they took the baby or, you know, I know what that entails. And so, yeah, that was my experience with them. I grew up not knowing back then, but I grew up compartmentalizing. So still am pretty good at not showing how you really feel, and being goofy and funny. I loved, you know, being the goofball in the class, and the same thing in basic training, the same thing in tech school and in the OR. It was me and my two really close other guy friends that were always goofing around. And so, you know, you hide a lot of pain if you're funny. And so, or sweet and charming, whatever. And I remember, so in 2008, when I did that, immediately, it was like maybe a month later, I was in basic training. I completely tried to block it out. And then, you know, 3 months later, however much long later, I was in school, surge tech school, and it's phase 1 training, phase 2, and then you go to your home base. And I remember phase 2, I believe, we were either watching or participating in a C-section. And I mean, I was just like, I just felt not myself being a part of that because I didn't even want to be in the room. The guilt started hitting me and I'm like, okay. And that was difficult. And then in the Air Force, once I got to my home base, you know, I didn't think about it a whole lot. I had like one serious boyfriend before I married my first husband. And I remember I had told him and he was kind and supportive, but it was still kind of like, well, but it doesn't matter. And I was still compartmentalizing. Like I'd never mourned. I'd never done anything with that experience. I did it and I left it there. It's like when you play sports, you get on your field, you leave your emotions, right? You leave it all. You leave it before you get on the field. Nothing from home can interfere with your performance right here. So that's what I did is I went to the Air Force and you're doing that every day. So I actually grew to love C-sections and vascular, but C-sections were like my favorite. That's like fun time in the OR. So my favorite was assisting, you know, the surgeons and watching them. Like I loved it when they would pull the baby out, unclog the nose and the mouth, and you'd hear that first scream. And I remember I would always just watch them carry it over to the warmer and, you know, we're closing. So you're helping close up with the surgeon. It was so exciting for me to see that baby. And I wasn't even a mom yet. I was like, just the way that God started to change my vision and perception of from conception to birth. It was changing, you know, in the Air Force. And so after I got in, I would probably say, well, no, I'm pro-life. Now I know because I've learned and learned how the baby forms and all the stages of it. You can call it a fetus. It's still okay. It starts out human and then it's a bigger human. It's big. So it's not about, there's never clump of cells that just, you know, it's okay at this point. But so you're saying it's okay to kill it at this young versus this old. So that's the difference. It was actually, I got out and had my son Bradley, and that was life-changing for me when I had him and held him. When I was pregnant with Bradley, I remember, you know, as I was getting bigger and bigger, in Lincoln again too, I struggled with massive guilt. I was like, just being honest, in my mind, you're a murderer, you're a murderer, you're a murderer of your own child at that. And so that was, for me, that was like, even at bed, couldn't fall asleep. So I, for a long time, struggled with guilt, just anxiety. And now, like, you need to be the best mom you could ever be, because of what you did, And so, for years, I mean, yeah, there was one time where, and I was just flipping the channels on my car, the radio, and I was driving home from the gym, and I was listening, and this is where it hit me like it never hit me before. So holding Bradley changed my life. I have a younger son, Lincoln. He's 2 now, and something that just stuck with me. I was listening to the radio. She was like a previous nurse or something, and she was talking about when you have an abortion. She was caught up in heaven, and she was saying there's a whole bunch of babies that aren't named because their moms never named them, or the mom and dad didn't name them. So they're waiting for their name in heaven. I lost it because I had already named Bradley. I hadn't had Lincoln yet, hadn't met my now husband. And I was driving home. This ties into my husband too. So I was driving home, and this lady said, if you've had an abortion and you haven't named your baby, go ahead and name your baby. Or, pray to God, ask him, is it a boy or girl? So, so I didn't know if it was a boy or girl. I had a feeling it was a boy, my first son. And I had to pull over. I was crying so hard. I had to pull over in my little Honda. I was bawling. This shook me like, oh my, this whole time. This is like 2015 that I hear this lady on the radio. I'm like, my poor baby's had no name in heaven. So I pull over and I'm crying. And because of the feeling, and this is before I met my now husband, I'll tell you why this is important. I pulled over and I said, Lord, please, I name my baby Chase. Please tell him I love him. I name him Chase, because I was chasing after this first child that I didn't have for years. The love I wanted to give them after having my second son, I was like, oh, I would have been such a good mom to them. And I knew growing up, I just didn't think. I had all these fears of, I'm going to get kicked out. My parents are going to hate me. Like, I'm going to be the failure. I had all these lies that I believed that I didn't tell anybody. My family didn't even know. I went off in the Air Force and did that. And so I pulled over the car, was crying. It's like, I named them Chase. And so the reason why that's significant was because I was so hesitant to date. I left a bad marriage, and I was so hesitant to date that I didn't date anybody for 3 years. And I was going to the gym like 5 or 6 days a week, going for a career and just training my butt off. And so, said no a whole bunch of times. And finally there was a man, and I kind of scoped him out and did like background. When you have a kid already, you're like, okay, are they going to be a good dad? That's real important. And do they love Jesus? And so I scoped him out from a distance and checked with like 5 people who also knew him. And once I started dating my husband, Ryan, I knew he was like a great big brother. He was a great caretaker of his younger brother. And I've been asking God, like, okay, God, is this man for me? I don't even want to date anybody unless this is how I am. I don't even want to date him unless I'm going to marry him. I'm a single mom. I ain't got time to do this. Okay. So I was like, the confirmation I got was Brian had told me, oh yeah, you come to the house, meet the family, and his brother's name is Chase. I had never met anybody else named Chase. It was prophetic. The name to me meant I was chasing after my first child I never had. So when Ryan said, my younger brother's name is Chase, and Ryan was like such a great big brother to him, I said, okay, God, yep, he's the one. And so when he told me, that's when I was like, okay, I think I'm going to marry this one. So anyways, that's how it kind of tied in. So seasons are events that make me think about Chase in heaven. Honestly, is like every day I'm playing with my sons, Bradley and Lincoln. I just think like what we would be doing, what he would look like, what his personality would be like. Because even my 2 sons are so different from each other. So it's not something you can guess, but I can imagine what they would look like. And I just know that if I would have had him, I would have loved him. We would be fine. So I know that I would have been a great mom to my first son because we're instilled with gifts and things that we might not even know that come out when you become a parent. So a lot of people are scared to have kids, right? They're scared to become a mom or dad because maybe they didn't have a nice mom or dad, or maybe they had no dad. Real common, right? And here's the thing, when you have a kid is you get to be everything that you didn't get. So it's like, well, why would you repeat the problem? Sometimes we do repeat things we don't mean to, but you get to take away the good things that you learned growing up, and you try your hardest not to apply the bad things. But just because you were raised this way has nothing to do with how you're going to raise your baby. So I have a family member who just had a daughter, and I know this family member, and I was just telling them, you get to be the dad that you get to be. Like, nobody tells you how you have to raise your child. You get to raise them. And that was something that I wish I would have realized with Chase. And I just know because of the way I was with Bradley, and that was in an abusive marriage. Like, I was single, like probably would have been even easier than I thought, for sure. And the things that make me think of my son in heaven is literally every day playing with my son. So I started thinking about him when I had Bradley. So my son's 9 years old now. And so for 9 years, it's been, if not daily, it's like every other day. I think about him almost every single day, and I miss him, and it's crazy. How do you miss somebody you never met? How do you miss somebody? It's like, I miss him. That's why I named him Chase, because I'm just like chasing after him. So every day I think about him. I feel like, so if a person goes missing, let's think about it like that. If somebody goes missing, that person is missed by all their family members. Their career is gone. Every single impact. So I totally believe in something called the ripple effect. And you don't even have to be a believer to know that this is true. The butterfly effect, the ripple effect, right? That's real. Where someone has an impact on you, and then you share their story to somebody else, or it changes your perception, even if it's about one little thing. So when you have an abortion or whatever choice you make, when that happens, you're taking away an entire career. You're taking away a lifetime. So think about how many daily interactions, how many times do you speak to somebody a day? Through your Instagram, through your phone, through in person, through texting. So you're having multiple conversations with multiple people every single day of your life. Since you're born, before you can talk, you're interacting with your parents, one or the other, or your grandpa or your foster, whoever's raising you, right? So you're taking away not just an entire lifetime, you're taking away every single ripple effect that would have an impact on all these people that person would have known. So I know, like, I'm 33. I know that my generation has had a complete annihilation, a wipeout of an entire generation. With my son, I just think, if I hadn't done that, it wasn't God's will. If I hadn't rebelled and done this to myself and to him, who would he have been in this world? Like, would he have joined the military too? Like, would he have followed my footsteps? Would he have become an engineer and you have no idea. What if Elon Musk was aborted? Think about that. Like, okay, like, what if these people that you look up to, let's say you're a fan of your favorite politician, your favorite movie actress, your favorite cooking show, what if they were aborted as a clump of cells? Okay, so you have no idea how many opportunities have been missed too because of that choice, which shouldn't be a choice, but the best choice is to have your kid, because you have no idea. And I'm just going to say, you're going to fall in love with their smile. The first time they giggle, which is like day 2, of a newborn, I'm telling you, you will never regret having that baby. And if you're having doubts and you're pregnant right now, I'm telling you, just wait till you hold them. Just wait till you hold them. And furthermore, if you're still thinking this is a horrible situation, I'm just going to say it. My cousins were adopted. You can always put your baby up for adoption. If you're that worried, about the environment, if you're that worried about, well, I'm in poverty, or we're living in the ghetto, we have a horrible circumstance, my husband abuses me, my boyfriend doesn't want it, just have it, put it up for adoption. So that would be my advice for anybody who's still in like, this is a horrible situation. You don't know my situation. No, I don't. But it's not like have them or abort. There's like other avenues you can do. Adoption. You can work with a foster family so that you approve and you want them to go to this family, So I just want to put that out there. There's so many more resources, and the internet is so vastly advanced in finding resources even for you than, even my generation. So I would definitely encourage that. If I could talk to my 19-year-old self today, I would say, no idea the possibilities of having this baby. It's not going to close doors like the world tries to tell you, like everybody says you're going to be boxed in. That is 100% a lie. Now that I know what I know, I would have told myself, you have no idea the possibilities that this little boy or little girl is going to have on your life and how many doors it's going to open up for you, because becoming a parent is one of the most maturing, and just the gravity of you're responsible for another life. Man, that can propel you into your career faster than if things are so easy, right? I don't want to say having a newborn is difficult, but oh my goodness, the blessings in every day you hold that baby. I wish somebody would have told me, what? You're even thinking about that? That I didn't even open that door for anybody to have that conversation with me. But if I could go back in time, I would just say, how do you know? How do you know this is a mistake? How do you know? That's a lie. So I would have been a very comforting mom to myself if I could put it that way. So if I could say anything to Chase, the first thing, is I'm so sorry. But he knows that. I've told God to tell him. And so he knows that already. He knows I love him. And I'm telling you, the first person I want to hug in heaven is Chase. The first person I want to run to is Chase. And everybody's like, Jesus, I know Jesus, but I hope it's Jesus and Chase. And so I love him so much because I love Bradley and Lincoln so much. They have my sons more than any other experience, more than coming out of a bad relationship, more than the military. My two sons have shaped me to be the best person, earthly shaping that is possible. And reading my Bible, going deeper with Jesus, praying, and being around other believers has also helped with my walk, growing closer to Jesus. And the closer I grow, the closer I'm in step with God, is I feel closer to Chase. And if that's your motivation, let that be your motivation, because your heart's pure. Your intentions are pure. You want to be in heavenly places, and so I would, if I could talk to Chase, I would just tell him how much I love him and how much I cannot wait. I can't wait, but I cannot wait to see him. That's my message. That's it. Yeah. The overwhelming emotion I remember when I was 19 and contemplating this was fear. You can be afraid and still do something. You can be afraid and still have a baby. And like I said, don't have worst case scenario. I wish was only adoption. There are so many resources that were just not available. There are so many more pro-life ministries that will help you do whatever you need to do, whether it's finding a family or finding housing or giving you a job. If you'll lose your job because you're going to have a baby, then you know what? There's a lot of other career opportunities, and a lot of people are working from home now, and you can do it with a baby. You can do it. So I would say, don't let fear, in whatever shape or way or form it comes through, even through family members that are encouraging you to do this, do not let their words affect your decision, because at the end of the day, it's you and your baby. No one else is having this but you. So I would encourage you to take care of your baby and yourself by researching and just finding help. Whatever, if you don't have help, I didn't think I had help, and that is probably not true because I didn't take the time to do the research. And if finances are an issue too, there are unlimited resources to help that as well. I'm talking about a job. I'm talking about just straight up grant money that people will donate to ensure that you're going to be okay and your baby's going to be more than okay. So I would say, do not let fear stop you in any way, shape, or form, thinking that you will ever be successful, won't get to do your calling. This could have, and more likely than anything, have everything to do with your calling and your purpose in life.